Hey there, it's Vickie Howell here to show you how to read a knitting chart. It can be a little intimidating sometimes, but really it's going to unlock all kinds of skill goodness for you once you realize how simple it is. So I'm going to use it as an example, these mitts by Tanis Gray. She designed them for me for Yarnier, and the chart that she also created. And I have them sitting next to each other so you can see how they correspond. Oh, that was right the first time. Okay. So all that you need to know about reading charts is that every single box equals one stitch. And if you're working in the round like we are for these mitts, then you read the chart going from right to left every row. If you're working a piece flat, you read the odd rows, so starting with 1 from right to left, and then the even rows from left to right. So you flip over the piece and you work this way. Most ferrule work is done in the round because it's so much easier. You don't have to deal with stranding in front of your work that way, but not all. So just so you know, for this pattern and for any work in the round, you just need to know to always start over on the right side. All right, another thing to know is that there will always be a key. This key is key. Each stitch will be since this is worked in the round, there'll be all knit stitches. If we were working back and forth, it would probably say knit on the right side, purl on the wrong side, but with the same symbol. And then this has it listed with, let me see if I can get close enough. Getting shadow, it is twilight here. MC, which stands for main color, it could say, you know, A if it's color A, or it could say the actual color name in a pattern. Different people write it at different ways, but this is MC for main color. And also you'll notice that in the corresponding materials list, it uses the same abbreviation, MC, so that you know that whenever you see that black little square, we're talking about that same color. This happens to be Wicked's Pacific and Rainbow Heirloom DK, but whatever your main color, which is what MC is, that's what the black square symbolizes. So just for the purposes of this particular chart, you see all of these squares are black. All that means is that you're knitting every stitch in every row. Every stitch of this row, row 1, in that main color. Same goes for row 2. Now you'll also notice that there is this red square box. Well, it's also on our key. That notes that it's a pattern repeat. So for this, it's easy, right? You're just knitting all the way around for those 2 rows in one color. But as you start getting into the stranded color work, I highly suggest putting stitch markers after every, this happens to be a 14 stitch repeat, but it varies depending on the art. So if you put a stitch marker essentially right here, you'll know every time you get to that, it's time to start again. So we've seen that this is main color. We've seen that this is a repeat. Let's go over here. This other box says contrasting color. All right, so anytime it's a little hard to see on the camera, but there's this sort of like real pale gray. Essentially anything that's not black, you're working in that contrasting color. And the thing to note here for the knit one, in case that's confusing, this isn't about the color, it's about the lack of symbols, which I should have led with. So the symbols, if let's say this was a purl stitch, often that would be this square and it would have 1 dot in the middle. If it were a certain kind of decrease, it might have a little triangle in the middle, and so on and so on. Knit stitches, or when you knit on the right side and purl on the wrong side, if the forward-facing stitch is always just this empty box. So don't let that confuse you with the color. Anytime you're not working in what looks like black here or MC, you're working in CC, or the white, the contrasting color, and they're all worked in the same stockinette stitch, which in the round is knitting every round. All right, and so that's pretty much it. I know it seems like a lot, but it'll actually free you up because then you don't have to go back and forth reading instructions, and you can just really look at this, and it gives you a really nice visual. So here, you can see here, this one goes with this one, how they correspond exactly. All right, the last thing I wanted to know is how you use this chart in correspondence with a written pattern. In some patterns, and really it's rarer, but in some patterns the writer and the designer will write out what the chart says. So in this case, if we look at row 3 or round 3, it would be knit 1 with contrasting color, or it would say like CC1, CC1, MC1. So knit 1 in the contrasting color, knit 1 in the main color, and then it would probably have an asterisk and say repeat this many times. That's less often done, especially when something is printed. It takes up a lot of space, and it's really sort of it can get more confusing. It's just a lot of writing. So what you'll notice here, and I'm just going to pick a random spot, when the stitches start for this particular pattern, and this is just a good example, so it doesn't matter what pattern you're working on, you will see that the directions go to join MC, we already know what that means, and then you work rounds 1 to 11 of the chart once. So that means you can set aside your written instructions. You'll come back when you're done, when you're not working on the color work. For example, here, no color work, but there is some thumb work, so there's going to be some written instructions. So you'll just set it aside until you work those 11 rounds, and then you'll refer back to it. And that's really all there is to it. Don't be afraid. It really is just another tool. It's actually a great aid, and it makes stranded knit work significantly easier, especially when you have both things in front of your knitting hands. Okay, I hope that answers your questions. If you have any more, please just post in the comment section, and we will do our best to get you knitting speedily and beautifully. Okay, thanks a lot.